Hey there, true crime enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we've got a spine-tingling topic to delve into. We'll be counting down the top 10 most terrifying serial killers of all time. So, make sure you're ready for some seriously gruesome stories. Let's dive right in. Starting off our countdown at number 10 is a name that still sends shivers down our spines. Meet Albert Fish, a man known by bone-chilling aliases such as the Gray Man, Brooklyn Vampire, Werewolf of Wisteria, and Moon Maniac, was a true embodiment of evil. Picture the 1920s, a time when he prowled the streets, kidnapping, murdering, and even cannibalizing innocent children, leaving behind a trail of horror and revulsion. Now, here's the shocking part. Albert Fish was an unassuming, ordinary-looking man who could blend seamlessly into a crowd. Albert Fish was born in 1870 in Washington, D.C., into a family plagued by a long history of mental illness. When he was 5, his father passed away, and his mother left him and his siblings in a state-run orphanage, where the caretakers subjected children to regular beatings and even taught them to inflict harm on each other. He came to associate pain with pleasure, and later to sexual gratification. He developed a gruesome obsession with sexual self-mutilation, piercing his groin with needles and whipping himself with a nail-studded paddle. But it didn't stop there. His sinister fascination soon turned towards cannibalism. The gruesome details of his heinous crimes remained hidden until 1934, when he sent a letter to a victim's family, detailing the murder and cannibalism of a daughter who had been missing for 6 agonizing years.
On Sunday, June 3, 1928, I called on you at 406 W 15th Street. Brought you pot cheese and strawberries. We had lunch. Grace sat in my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind to eat her on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes, she could go. I took her to an empty house in Westchester I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside. She picked wildflowers. I went upstairs and stripped all my clothes off. I knew if I did not, I would get her blood on them. When all was ready, I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in a closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked, she began to cry and tried to run downstairs. I grabbed her and she said she would tell her mom. First I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. I did not fuck her, though I could have had I wished. She died a virgin.
The letter was traced back to none other than Albert Fish. Upon his arrest, he didn't deny a thing, confessing to his crimes in horrifying detail. The story takes a sinister twist when you learn that, just before his execution in 1936, Albert Fish wrote a chilling record of all his crimes, a document so horrifying that his lawyer couldn't bring himself to share it with the public. Moving on to number 9, we're diving into the twisted world of Andrei Chikatilo, the infamous butcher of Rostov and the Rostov Ripper. This Soviet serial killer's horrifying reign of terror extended from 1978 to 1990, during which he shockingly confessed to taking the lives of 53 women and children, solidifying his place among the most prolific serial killers the world has ever known. Chikatilo was born in 1936 in the small village of Yablokn, a time when Ukraine was gripped by a devastating famine that claimed millions of lives and forced many into cannibalism to survive. Growing up, Chikatilo's mother told him a gruesome tale of an older brother who had allegedly been kidnapped and eaten by a neighbor, though this story remains unverified. His family endured extreme poverty. Hunger was a constant companion, and at times, they resorted to consuming leaves and grass to stave off starvation. Fast forward to his adult life, Chikatilo's story takes a darker turn. After his compulsory military service, he became a teacher, but he was forced to resign from his position, following complaints from parents about Chikatilo's alleged sexual assaults on their young children. Now, let's delve into the nightmarish aspect of his story. In 1978, Chikatilo's reign of terror began. He preyed on the most vulnerable, young boys and girls, whom he met at bus depots and rail stations, luring them with deceptive promises and cunning charm. All his victims exhibited distinct mutilations when they were found. But here's the jaw-dropping part: Chikatilo managed to evade the law for years, even after being arrested in 1984 for molesting a girl at a train station. Shockingly, he was sentenced to just 1 year in prison but was released after a mere 3 months, after which he resumed his gruesome activities. The twist in this dark tale arrived in 1990 when Chikatilo's suspicious behavior in a police station finally raised the alarm. This led to a thorough search of his belongings, unearthing a treasure trove of horrifying evidence, marking the end of his reign of terror. Justice was finally served, and Chikatilo was sentenced to death, meeting his end in 1994. Moving on to number 8, we introduce a name that might not be too familiar, but his crimes are the stuff of nightmares. Brace yourselves as we step into the eerie realm of Ed Gain, often dubbed as the Plainfield Ghoul or the Butcher of Plainfield, a Wisconsin farmer whose name still haunts the darkest corners of true crime history. Edward Theodore Gain was born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, into a troubled family. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother was overbearing and religiously fanatic. Gain had an unhealthy devotion to his mother, who instilled in him and his older brother Henry the belief that the world was full of evil and that all women, except for her, were instruments of the devil. In 1915, the family moved to Plainfield, where they lived in an isolated and desolate farmhouse outside of town. Gain's life took a gruesome turn when he was left alone on the farm after his family's deaths. In 1957, authorities began investigating the disappearance of a 58-year-old hardware store owner, leading them to Gain's farm. Little did they know that they would walk into a house of horrors. There, they found the woman they were looking for, decapitated. But their discoveries went far beyond this horrifying scene. Police stumbled upon a collection of human skulls, some impaled on his bedposts, and others used to make bowls. They found chairs upholstered in human skin and masks crafted from actual human faces. Yes, you heard that right. There was even a lampshade made from a human face. Discovered among this gruesome assortment were dismembered body parts, including the genitals of women. On the property, they also uncovered the head of a tavern keeper who had gone missing in 1954. But the true horror lay in Gain's confession. He chillingly admitted to desecrating graves. His ultimate aim? To create a suit made from human skin in a bizarre attempt to bring his deceased mother back to life. This twisted obsession consumed him for years, painting a grim picture of the depths to which he had sunk. Investigators uncovered the remains of 10 women in Gain's home, yet he was directly linked to just 2 murders. The mind behind this macabre tale was declared mentally unfit for trial, leading to his confinement in various psychiatric institutions. But the story doesn't end there. In 1968, he found himself in court, where he was found guilty of the hardware store owner's murder. However, his insanity at the time of the crime was recognized, leading to his return to a mental hospital. He remained there until his death in 1984. And as for his notorious house of horrors, it met a mysterious and fiery end. Brace yourselves, folks, because at number 7, we're about to embark on a bone-chilling journey back in time to the gaslit alleys of 1888 London, where fear ruled the night. Our destination? The dark legend of none other than Jack the Ripper. Now, picture this: London in 1888, a city cloaked in fog, where a shadowy figure known as Jack the Ripper prowled the bleak and poverty-stricken Whitechapel district. His chosen targets were vulnerable women working as prostitutes, and he had a sinister way of drawing them into the eerie labyrinth of dimly lit alleyways. It was in this oppressive darkness that his horrifying deeds unfolded with terrifying precision, leaving a trail of fear and despair in his wake. His method typically involved slashing their throats before subjecting them to abdominal and genital mutilations. Notably, the removal of internal organs from at least 3 victims fueled speculation that the killer possessed some degree of anatomical or surgical knowledge. It was during the months of September and October in 1888, where the rumors surrounding these gruesome murders were reaching a fever pitch. This was the time when something truly bizarre began happening. Letters started pouring in, not just to Scotland Yard but to the newspapers as well, claiming to be from the very hand that carried out these heinous acts. Only 5 of the victims discovered from August to November were attributed to the same perpetrator, yet the murders remained unsolved, leaving authorities unable to identify the killer. It's truly perplexing, isn't it? How could an individual capable of such horrors seemingly disappear without a trace? Some speculated that he might have passed away, been institutionalized, or imprisoned. This enduring mystery has baffled investigators, spawned numerous theories, and ignited the imaginations of true crime enthusiasts for generations. This harrowing tale has not only inspired a plethora of books and documentaries but has also made its way onto the silver screen. Prepare for a plunge into the eerie depths of darkness as we unveil number 6 on our countdown, the malevolent figure known as Dennis Rader, infamous as the BTK Killer, which he explains stands for bind, torture, kill.
I put a plastic bag over his head and then some cords and then tightened it.
Did he in fact suffocate and die as a result of this?
Not right away. No, sir, he didn't.
Dennis Lynn Rader, born in 1945 in Pittsburgh, Kansas, was the eldest of 4 sons. His childhood was marked by neglect, as his parents worked long hours and paid little attention to their children. From an early age, Rader displayed a violent streak, torturing stray animals and harboring sadistic sexual fantasies involving trapped and helpless women. Rader's descent into murder began in January 1974, when he forced his way into a home, binding and strangling the parents and 2 of their children. His reign of terror continued for 2 decades. During his cooling-off periods, he indulged in disturbing activities, including taking photos of himself while bound, dressed in women's clothing and wearing a female mask, as he later confessed to acting out fantasies related to his victims. Despite these dark proclivities, he maintained a facade of normalcy, appearing as a loving husband, doting father, and even serving as the president of his church congregation. Dennis Rader meticulously documented his murders in a bone-chilling fashion, initially concealing the first note inside an engineering book at the Wichita Public Library in late 1974, a sinister piece of evidence later discovered by the police. As time passed, and following the death of his victim in December 1977, Rader's frustration grew due to the absence of media coverage. In a letter addressed to a local TV station, he penned his sinister thoughts, saying, "How many lives must I take before my name graces the pages of a newspaper or captures the nation's attention?" Fast forward to 2004, and the BTK Killer had become a perplexing cold case. After years of silence, Rader taunted law enforcement and the media through a series of letters and packages meticulously detailing his gruesome crimes. This audacious move turned out to be his undoing. Little did Rader know that the floppy disk he sent contained a digital breadcrumb trail that would lead straight to his doorstep. The disk held metadata linked to a document authored by none other than Dennis Rader himself. His fate was further sealed as DNA evidence, painstakingly gathered from his victims and samples from his daughter, confirmed his sinister identity. In 2005, the BTK Killer's reign of terror finally unraveled, delivering much-needed closure and relief to a community that had endured fear for far too long. At the age of 60, justice prevailed as he was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms.